Okay, here we go. Got a project I've been working on here a little bit over time with Rocky Boy as far as the video system for the FW42, the big version. We got a couple different video things that we're going to work on, and through playing around I figured it's easier for me to do a PDB setup than it is to direct wire things. This is a duplicate of a PDB that has issues with high power, high current use where the video cuts out and it causes problems on quads. So I figure for low video powered use and or low power use just for video and servo operation, this will be perfect. May as well get rid of it because it doesn't do any good in my quads. So I'm going to do a quick soldering tutorial on how to do things here, where I see a lot of guys doing build videos where they got bad habits, and these habits are causing newer, younger people who may not have the experience on how to solder, destroying boards and doing damage to things. Everybody's answer seems to be crank up the temperatures, and that's wrong, especially with electronics like this where everything is basically wave soldered on. If you get too much heat transferring from here to here or to here to here, you can damage solder joints here that were flowed and thus make those parts connections weaker or totally knock parts off that I've seen. So after working in the electronics field for years and years and years doing military grade stuff, they have rigorous and very tough standards for soldering and methods and how to do it, and they are very specific to it. One of the things to do is your lowest temperature needed to melt the solder, but you don't, where people will take a soldering iron, heat the pad, and then feed the solder in. That's wrong. What that does is A, it transfers all the heat to the board underneath where you only need it on the pad. Second, what this does is as you feed the solder in, especially on places where you need high heat for, say, power line connections for the battery and stuff, people tend to feed the solder in really fast to keep the heat up. And what that does is it splatters solder all over, and those little solder balls, if you miss them, can sit on any of these little tiny connections here, or roll between like capacitors, those little transistor pads there where you don't see it, and they cause shorts, and that's where a lot of people get into their problems. Clean solder joints and low temperatures, using the only the temperature needed, is best. So that being said, I'm going to do quick tinning here and prep for doing the solder work that I need to do and the wiring stuff that I need to do. So I figured I would just make a tutorial. Well, one of the tips is always keep your tip very, very clean. Okay, and make sure you are tinning your tip after every use here. And what I like doing is pre-tinning to get it nice and clean and ready to go for little jobs. Now, when you're doing your tinning, don't do it over the boards because again that will splatter. Notice there's not a lot of solder on there, and what I'm going to do is, boom. See, if you can melt the solder, it automatically transfers that heat right to the pad, just that quick. And that's when you do that, you're not superheating your board. You got a nice clean joint. Now for bigger pads like this, you should be using thicker solder than I am, but this is all I have on hand right now, so just a nice little push like that. There's no splatter. I'm not superheating the board. I can put my finger right on it. It's not even warm. You know, so things like this will save you a lot of hassles down the road during your build if you take your time and use the right tools and the right setups for your jobs. And just don't mind my hand shaking. Nerve damage does that. Another key thing is to hold your work down solid where it's not wobbling around. If the board's moving, you're chasing it all over the place. That just makes life easier or harder to accomplish what you're trying to do. And you notice that I'm not blowing on the joints to cool them or anything like that. That causes cold solder joints. Now, if you notice on larger joints like this, I'll build up solder on the iron so it's about ready to drop off, but I'll still do the transfer. That quick. No burning the fingers. See? Right on it. No heat transfer, no nothing. Beautiful solder bob for big enough for power supplies. So it takes practice and it takes persistence to get this, but in the long run, it just makes life so much better. And you're not burning out boards. You're not doing any damage to anything. You're not heating the PCB boards that the pads are on. You're not weakening any glue joints. And it literally is that easy. Just take your time. Right now my iron is only set on like 3.5. And as you see, it's more than plenty to get my job done that I want to do here. Again, it helps if your hands aren't as shaky, so. But such is life, and that is what we deal with. Again, you just take your time and put the solder down and let the heat transfer naturally. You know, it's not a race. It's not a who can get it done faster. Speed definitely does not make your job better here. And the more patience you take and the more time you take in doing it, the cleaner your work's going to be, the better your work's going to turn out to be. And the less damage you're going to do overall on your components. This also helps prepare you to do repair work that you're definitely going to need down the line. And that's a skill that everybody needs. If you're in the RC hobby, you're going to break things and you're definitely going to need to repair things. So taking the time to learn how to solder correctly, be patient, and do it neatly, it's going to make repairing things a whole lot easier down the road. And with these last few joints, I'm going to stop yakking because it's pretty much only going to be repeating myself. As you see, no time on the pad, no mess, no spatters, and definitely not overheating anything to the point where it could ever cause damage. By heating the solder first, that makes temperature so you're not sitting there cooking the pad while you're doing it, and as soon as the solder melts, it transfers that heat right to the pad. Does its bond, melts the flux, and it's a done deal. So hopefully this shows you guys how to do it right. There's no mess, no fuss, no burning. A little bit of alcohol and a toothbrush to clean up the little bit of flux that transferred, and this will be ready to go for all the connections I need to make. Hopefully this helps you guys.